Hello, everybody. Scott G here, Life Coach Scott G, with another of the videos here on the channel. And as we continue, hope to be here more often. Today, we're going to talk about signs of trauma or unhealed trauma, things that are an indicator that a person may be struggling with traumatic aspects in their life, but they haven't necessarily dealt with them fully yet, or the challenges that come with that. The first is they're willing to rush through emotions or not deal with emotions at all. Rushing emotions can be extremely difficult because these individuals are processing things at such a high speed. They're in fight, flight, or freeze more often than the average individual, which means they're not necessarily thinking actions and consequences in the same way that a person who is not having been through trauma is expected to. When the mind is forced to process emotions from a traumatic experience or series thereof, it becomes extremely difficult for that person to slow down and think through the various things and aspects that can happen when a minor problem becomes a major problem. Again, the mind moves extremely quickly. That then leads to the challenges associated with kind of making impulsive decisions or decisions that aren't completely thought through, which then leads to addictive behavior patterns and also potential chemical addictions or other forms of addiction. When a person finds comfort in a certain series of behaviors, they're going to go back to the things that make them comfortable because, number one, they're looking for escapism from the unhealed trauma. They're also looking for an activity that raises their levels of endorphin, serotonin, and other aspects, which then leads them to go for the things that make them feel good. Unfortunately, many of those things lead to a certain level of addiction and addictive pattern and behavior, which then leads to a lot of challenges with dealing with relationships and the consequences of said addiction. The next aspect there is emotional regulation. So, generally, a person who's been through trauma either tries to hide their emotions, not be emotional because it doesn't feel safe or right to feel emotional, or they've been in some way ridiculed, punished, or negatively impacted by showing their emotions, or the other side of that is there is a tendency towards suppressing emotions because it doesn't make sense. The other side is expressing every emotion or living and making decisions through the emotional core, which then leads to a lack of thought about consequences. Also can lead to assumptions, which then lead a person to feel like they are constantly in a place of frustration, constantly in a place of aggravation, and ultimately, things that happen are not fully regulated or not resolved in a proper way. This means it's hard for them to develop friendships, either because they aren't getting the feedback or the emotional support they need from their friends often or consistently enough, or because they're not open in their friendships with the challenges they're having. Therefore, the friend feels like they're always hiding something. And when a friend feels that they are hiding something, it can ultimately become extremely difficult, especially when one person feels they're being extremely. Those differences in behavioral patterns and those differences in patterns of behavior lead to some challenges for the person who is trying to avoid emotional closeness because they are always feeling that level of self-doubt, which is another sign of trauma. When a person is constantly doubting their own validity or the value to what they bring to the world, that's a sign that they have unhealed trauma. This is because second guessing and kind of vacillating through making the right decision constantly, that is perfectionism, or the need to earn love through being perfect, or the need to earn love through performance, becomes a part of a trauma bonded person's personality and their affect towards moving forward. And so what begins is constantly ridiculed and also constantly feeling like they are never enough. When a person doesn't feel feeling like enough can also lead to kind of an absence of the belief that they will ever be capable of meeting others as it relates to emotional connectivity. So hopefully this is helpful. I encourage you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.